Hello, everybody. Apparently, my camera went haywire or something went down. I turned this on a few moments ago and then it turned off on me. Gee, I wonder why. Well, I don't know. We're continuing the discussion for part two of the Churches of Christ, and we are here to um, kind of on a mission of love, to help people understand the the faith dimensions of and the boundaries between truth, some truth, and total um, chaos. And I think that what I'm involved in here is really discussing this particular church because of a friend who asked me to for one of their siblings. And I'm basically calling you in this part two. It's going to be a shorter part to really think about what you believe yourself. Now, you could be Catholic or you could be Baptist or Lutheran or Presbyterian, but we basically generally have the same foundational truths, okay, even though we may disagree about various others. But I'm here specifically discussing the differences between the Catholic Church and the Churches of Christ. Okay, so it is only that I'm trying to give you as much understanding in how to discern what is truth. Pontius Pilate asked that. He asked Jesus on this very day, Good Friday, what is truth? I can't understand it. Well, we can't understand it if we don't look for it, if we don't seek it, you know. Um, I am wanting to start really in two different ways. There is a lot of sometimes quibble over what is dogma, what is a doctrine. The Catholic Church has done this throughout the centuries, that throughout the centuries. So the Churches of Christ will oftentimes, in its members, try to, point the finger. You guys are really, you bad. You killed people throughout the centuries. You did this and that. You became dictators and all this stuff. The papacy and well, you know what? Half of that, if not all of that, is not true. First of all, even if somebody in the church committed some very grievous crime, all we have to look as far as that is Judas Iscariot, who basically betrayed Jesus Christ, the Son of God, the God. I mean, he is divine, And I'm speaking from a Catholic perspective. Okay, so I hope you guys understand that. Some of you are not, Catholic. So, if you want to look to criminals and crime and sin, you don't have to look much further than the 12 apostles. Um, Peter, look at Peter. Yeah, our first pope. Denied Jesus Christ, the Son of God, 3 times. Not once, not twice, but 3 times. He cursed in some translations that he didn't even know him. Now, if a pope did that today, if he cursed that he didn't know Jesus Christ today, there would be a totally wipeout of a problem. I mean, it's like everybody would go pile on, and that's what I'm trying to get at, is that I think sometimes we have to kind of stand back and look at the early church and understand the apostles and how they lived. They didn't live very holy lives, you could say. I mean, when they were around Jesus, I mean, at least on the surface, I mean, they carried swords. People will say, well, the popes carried swords and they were fighters and they did this. Yeah, and some in the 16th century, Julius the First, I think, or second, I believe, with the big movie Agony and the Ecstasy. He was a soldier. He carried a sword, But so did Peter, the apostle. Remember that sword he swiped at the ear of the man in the Garden of Gethsemane to protect Jesus. And Jesus told him, he warned him that basically if you continue that, that's how you're going to end up yourself. But they carried swords. All the apostles carried swords throughout all of Jesus's ministry. It just proves that. I mean, it's not like, Peter just decided to buy that sword that one evening. He didn't know what was going to happen. Come on. We have to be a little more honest with ourselves, If we're going to call somebody else, something, let's go back and take a look at how it really was, instead of just try to, pick and choose our little cherries, So the apostles carried swords, no doubt about it, all right? I'm sure that they wouldn't just let Peter carry a sword. Because remember, what Peter does, the other apostles have to follow. I'm sure that there are some churches who will agree with that. Well, you have to agree with the good and the bad. I'm sorry. It's not just one or the other. So what did we talk about last time? I mean, basically, we talked about manipulation, control, things that cults do, social cults, such as the churches of Christ. And I say that because it's an experiential thing, and also because of someone who experienced it herself and told me that. Someone who's telling someone who's planning things well ahead, someone who is dictating to you how to live from a Christian perspective. Those are cults. Those are social cults, socialized. If we don't, if we just ignore that, then we're prone to fall into that gap. Now, if we are Catholic, we will take this little book. It's called the Catechism of the Catholic Church. Not so little, I guess. And we're going to start reading it. Comes in pocketbook edition on Amazon. Not that expensive, $7.95. Actually, I think it went up $1 in the last 10 years, $8.95. It's got, every page has scripture in it. Every page is scripture and quotes of the early fathers of the church. We need to also understand our roots. See, the only way we're going to be able to defend our faith with folks from the, I don't like to say the other side, but well, how else am I going to put it, right? For instance, from this one group that is labeled on my forum, how are you going to defend yourself? How are you going to even begin? I'm talking to you. You know who you are. How are you going to defend your faith when someone confronts you about it? How? If you don't know it. If you don't know something and someone confronts you about it, guess what? It's time to start learning. Yeah. And it doesn't take that much time. I was a teenager when I started learning about my faith. And it didn't take me until late 30s before I really came to terms and understood and had the gift of faith, which was always there by the Holy Spirit, presented to me, given to me. But the thing is, you can have a lot of gifts by the Holy Spirit. Think of it this way. It's like having milk. You pour the powdered chocolate milk. You pour that. You put take a spoonful of the powdered chocolate and you put it in the glass, and then you pour milk in it. Unless you stir it, you're only going to taste milk. So you can have a bunch of gifts given to you by the Holy Spirit. Unless you stir them, they're going to mean nothing. Zip, zip, nothing. I'm not saying you have to know everything, but you have to understand some things that are important. For instance, one of the verses I quoted to you yesterday, Matthew 16, I believe 19 or 17 to 18, where Jesus clearly makes a stand. This is who you are, Peter. This is what you're going to remain. And Peter comes back, a few verses later and starts, throwing his weight around. Well, he was given authority, so I guess he's got authority to do that. And Jesus kind of sets him back. He says, "Get behind me, you Satan." Boy, what a way to talk to a pope, right? I guess Jesus can talk to anyone any way that he wants to do. But clearly, everyone has limitations. Everyone has boundaries. If you don't follow those boundaries, your life will be miserable, whether you're in the leadership of the church, a bishop, a pope, a cardinal, whatever, priest, laity, doesn't matter. So what I want to discuss today more is the objections that the churches of Christ have towards the Catholic Church. I'm not going to be able to cover all of them by any stretch, but the greatest objection is, where is that in the Bible? Interestingly enough, before I get into that subject, I told you yesterday, if you looked at part 1 of the video, I know it's long, it's an hour and a half, but if you really took the time to listen to it, because everything that's in it is basically researched. There's nothing in it that I can't defend, either from an encyclopedia or from common sense. All right? So if you just open up, one of these books, I think you'll get a lot out of them, a lot out of it. And one of the biggest questions we sometimes get is, where is that in the Bible? You know how you should respond to that question if you really don't know how to respond to that question? Where does it say it has to be in the Bible? Where does the Bible say it's got to be in the Bible? Or at the very least, explicitly, like the churches of Christ believe. Unless it's written there, written in ink, you can't believe in it, or you can't mention or talk about it. That's why they don't believe in that's why they don't mention the word Trinity. They probably believe in, I think they believe in the Trinitarian concept or philosophy, but they don't talk about it. Why don't they talk about it? Ask them. That's because the Catholic Church defined it. That would lead them down a bad path. That would make them feel that, well, I have to acknowledge that, the Catholic Church is right some of the time, I guess. Well, it's not. That's not the case. That's not the way it works. The church is right or it's wrong, period. You can't be half right. The Catholic Church I'm talking about. So, I wanted to basically bring this conversation to this foray in that understanding the basic tenets of the Catholic faith is what helps us understand how to respond to people who ask us questions that we may not understand altogether. People will ask us, you have so many saints. Why so many saints? Well, first of all, we are all saints. You respond. There are saints in heaven. There are saints on earth. But you folks have statues of saints. I mean, certainly no one's going to make you a statue of you. Well, yeah, true. But not everybody on the baseball league is going to be in the Hall of Fame either. Yet they're all professionals. You have to kind of try to use some common sense. Everyone in a baseball league, professional baseball league, are professional baseball players. Everyone in the Hall of Fame are professional baseball players. They're all professional baseball players. But there are some that are better than others. It's just the way it is. So God has a Hall of Fame too. It's the Hall of Fame of the saints, the ones with the highest virtues exemplified in living life, living day-to-day life. Mother Teresa. I mean, who would think that you would just go off and do what she did? She came from a very rich family, very wealthy family. She threw it all away. She basically, I'm going to go help the poor. How many people do you know are going to do that? Who even go to church with you on Sunday? It's not that it's expected of you to do that, but I'm just giving you an example that they are higher echelons in the saintly or in the holy, virtuous realm that we all live in and we strive for. So that's probably a good way to start when someone says to you, why so many saints? We are all saints. That's probably the best way to answer, and then go from there. Another popular misconception or objection by the churches of Christ is, why do you need a pope? Why do you have a dictator? For someone who's supposed to be, Christian leader, pastor, whatever. Well, that's the problem. He is a pastor. He is a Christian leader. But not everything he says, we say, he doesn't say jump and we say how high. Even though I know the churches of Christ, if they tell you to jump, you better ask them how high, or you're going to get your butt kicked. Okay, so that's the irony of ironies. They're going to tell you that you have a dictator for a pope, yet they themselves are really dictators. They're the ones that actually control your lives. Now you know who I'm talking to. You're listening to me. You're watching this. I hope. You know who's controlling you. So if he or she is telling you the Pope is this and that and dictator and all that, blah, 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 why don't you turn around and say, well, why are you telling me what I should be doing? Who made you Pope? Why don't you go ahead and turn around? See, you have to, I'm not saying fight physically, but be a little bit, have common sense. Don't be a wuss. God didn't make you a wuss or a wimp. The faith is very simple to understand, not difficult. But if you don't want to understand it, you're going to fall prey to people like the one you're falling into. Okay? Don't blame yourself. Don't feel sorry for yourself. Stand up, shake the boots from your feet, grab a good book, and learn your faith. And you won't have to feel so sorry for yourself. I was divorced for 21 years. I didn't remarry. Am I crying about it? No. I was 29 when I got divorced because someone decided to go unfaithful on me. Does that mean that I'm going to start crying at the age of 32 or 33 because I don't have a girlfriend? Come on. Wake up. Don't feel sorry for yourself. I don't feel sorry for myself, and you shouldn't feel sorry for yourself. Who cares? You'll have a girlfriend when God decides you should have a girlfriend. And it shouldn't be somebody who is going to tell you what to do every single moment of your life. It isn't going to be certainly someone who's going to keep your children away from your parents. How do you feel if your spouse suddenly tomorrow tells you, you know what? Our church tells us that we cannot visit your parents because they are Catholic. How would you feel? Do you think that marriage was worth it on that day? You really think so? Think about that for a few minutes. while you're drinking on that Modelo. Do you think that it's worth to marry someone just because they're pretty? I'm not going to have a girlfriend because she's probably my last one. Come on. Stop feeling so sorry for yourself. If I felt that way, I'd be married by now and maybe dead because of a heart attack someone would have given me. You know, I had a girlfriend in 2000. I'll give you a little example. I had one right after I got divorced and after I got my nullification of marriage. All right. So some of you Catholics out there, I want you to know, that's important to do, probably the most important thing to do to get right after you get divorced, to try to get your life in order. Well, I was about to get engaged. I brought her a 2-carat solitaire ring. Now imagine the answer that you get. Normally you get, woman's ecstatic, right? She asked me, what, I'm trying to think about this. This is too funny. How big is this stone? Now you girls out there, you really gonna ask that of a guy? Especially when you see a mountain of a diamond on the solitaire, you're going to ask him how big that ring is? Really? I doubt that. Not too many of you, I don't think. Well, maybe some of you, I don't know. But that's what I was asked. Well, I kindly said, I'll take care of it. I returned it and never showed up again. We need to be careful. Control comes through every possible way. Anyone can control us. We can't allow that to happen. Only you can allow that to happen. You. If someone tells you, don't do this, think about what you're doing. If it's something that's hurting yourself, they probably got a point. But think about the future. I'm not going to repeat part 1, but I'm going to basically make it clear that don't allow yourself to be taken over by someone who has religious connotations. Anyone who tells you something, not to do something because God says so, be very weary of that. Even we Catholics don't say that. We don't use that kind of word. And yet I know many priests that smoke. That's not good for you. Certainly not going to go tell them, hey, listen, be careful, you're going to get this and that and the other. I mean, it's out of my business, really. I think he's smart enough to know what he's doing. But the point of the next point that I want to make is basically it's all surrounding this issue of control. Control and manipulation. Don't be manipulated. Don't be stupid. Yeah, I know I used that word. I know it's kind of, I shouldn't be probably using that word, but sorry, I call a spade a spade. Sometimes people need to hear harsh words to really wake up. And in part 2 of this series, I'm going to be using some harsh words because I think we need to wake up. And believe me, I had harsh words spoken at me too. So don't feel bad about it, all right? So when we are confronted by someone who says, where is that in the Bible? Then you should ask yourself, where is what in the Bible? Where is what that this came from the Bible? How did what came into the book of the Bible? You know what? Pick up a Bible. Show them the book of John. No, better yet, I'll tell you, why don't you show them the book of Revelations? They love the book of Revelation. Churches of Christ, they love the book of Revelations. That was probably one of the most fiercely debated books to be codified in the early church. It may not have been in there, but for a few votes of the Council of Carthage in 397 AD. So the very book that they're arguing about wouldn't have been in there to begin with. Certainly would not have been adopted by Martin Luther, because he's not going to be putting in a New Testament book that's never been in there, okay? He was very quick to take them out. I know. Some people will say, well, he footnoted him. Well, think about that. Are you really defending footnoting the New Testament? Is that supposed to be something better? Putting a bunch of books of the Bible under a footnote or bookmarking them like they're not that important? The Word of God entirely is important. In fact, I would tell you that you should start with the Gospels. Like I said in the first part of the series, we come to learn Paul, Philemon, Timothy, all the epistles through the words of Jesus Christ. What did he have to say? And somehow Jesus speaks very plainly and clearly. Doesn't mince words. So if our faith fails the muster of what Jesus had to say plainly, most likely he got Paul wrong. Yeah. So, with the churches of Christ, mainly the whole position that, you being a Catholic is very bad. You should hear of all the stuff that the Catholics have done. They pillaged this village. They did that. They did. Notice the word "did." Well, let's just take one step backward and say that all that is true. Okay. Some of it maybe was. I'm sure. Hey, no one's perfect. I'm a sinner. You think the Pope is not a sinner? You think the Cardinal's not a sinner? They probably sin more. They have more access to it. I mean, they're pretty way up. A person who has more power and authority over in the church is more tempted than the average person. Did you know that? Yeah. If you have more money, you're going to be more tempted to use it badly. And that's really something you need to think about. So, what did Jesus say about sin? Remember when the Pharisees got around in a circle and started to say to Jesus, they pushed this woman into the center. Remember that story? Lord, she's an adulteress. Moses commanded us to stone such a person. What did Jesus say? He's talking to the Pharisees now. These were leaders, Jewish leaders for, at that time, I guess you could say 4,000 years, 6,000 now. But what did he say to them? Who among you has not sinned? They dropped those stones pretty quick. They knew they were all guilty of sin. So, my friends, when we start pointing fingers at each other and saying, you're a sinner, look at this priest did that priest did this. Maybe we should recall what Jesus had to say. Who among you has no sin? Cast the first stone. Who among you who has no sin, cast the first stone? Respond to her that way. If she starts telling you and babbling to you about all the stuff that the Catholic Church did, respond. Who are you without sin to cast the first stone? There you go. You got an answer right there. A freebie from me. Who are you? Who are you to tell me that I'm a sinner? I know I am, but what are you? Oh, I did mention in a small little emphasis that in the churches of Christ, they're going to say oftentimes, well, the Pope is not infallible. He's not, he's not true in what he says or whatever, or the Catholic Church is so bad. I did mention to you that they believe that what they believe in the Restoration, after the Restoration movement, that whatever they teach is equivalent to that of the apostles. So that means that public revelation didn't stop with John, continued. And they are the recipients of it, apparently. So be aware of what I'm telling you right now. When your girlfriend or boyfriend tells you from the churches of Christ that what you're doing is wrong and sinful, they're not really telling you the whole story. They believe that what they're telling you is what their church is teaching them to tell you, which in fact means is that they're no different or no less than an apostle, which is utterly blasphemous, to say the least. I believe that all Protestants, including Catholics, do not believe basically that the last public revelation ended with the last apostle, John. Now, we're not talking about private revelation. I mean, we've had saints that have seen the Virgin Mary, Jesus Christ. We've had many different, but we don't have to believe them either. So if they point that out to us, we could say, well, okay, the church has that in her docket, but I don't have to believe it. The Catholic Church does not tell you have to believe every apparition that's out there. I believe in most of them. I have a hard time with a couple of them, but I believe in most of them. But that they're not infallible. They're not something that you have to believe in. They're just simply, the church is simply stating that nothing doctrinally is erroneous in this vision. What is being spoken of, transmitted, is not doctrinally erroneous. That's all the church is saying, the Catholic Church. But it's not equalizing itself with the apostles. It's not claiming that the apostles carry the same inspiration as that of the churches of Christ. Do you even understand what I'm saying? That is what they believe. They believe that public revelation never ended. That's why they can tell you what you're supposed to do or not do. Do you understand that? Listen up. They're able to tell you things to do or not do because they claim to be an extension of the apostles. They're inspired the same way the apostles are inspired, according to them. They may not tell you that now, but if you dig a little, you'll find it. Not hard. It's right here in my little resources, and they're all encyclopedic, or basically I took it straight from the horse's mouth. I went to their websites. And even their website is going to go out and say that straight out. That's what they believe. Read the early Campbell books, or at least the early editions of some of the small topics, some of those quotes. Dig them up. I forgot the name of the man that one of the founders. There were two founders, the father and son, named Campbell. I can't find that at this moment, but I'm going to try. There was Thomas Campbell, who organized what's called the Christian Association of Washington in 1809. I don't know what that means, really. He was hoping to reunite Christian churches by restoring the apostolic practices of the early church. How do you think he's going to do that? Unless he's going to be able to acknowledge to himself and to those around him that he's an apostle too. Because if he's not inspired, he can't do that. Well, he and his son Alexander were key participants in the Restoration movement. They sought to restore the first century beliefs and practices of the apostolic churches. Alexander Campbell took over the leadership of the movement after he joined his father. Their interpretation of the Bible led them to accept immersion of believers as the only acceptable mode of baptism. Consequently, they joined the Baptists. They joined the Baptist faith. Baptists are Christians. I have a very good friend that's one. But apparently that wasn't good enough. Apparently the Baptists didn't have enough faith or whatever. Alexander Campbell became a very influential leader among the Baptists. He was editor of the Christian Baptist and a well-known debater and preacher. His teaching concerning the need for a new reformation in the church, there's always, all of a sudden we need a new reformation in the 1800s. How about that? Ain't that a kick in the head, huh? We just had one 200 years earlier, and now, you know, someone's calling for a new one, a new Martin Luther. See how things can roll down the wind real fast, real nasty, real quickly? In 1830, this is a man who was a Baptist. And they claim they're not denomination. A denomination is something that, a church that denominates. You have to come from somewhere. That's why the Catholic Church is clearly not a denomination. If we were a denomination, I asked the question thousands of times, who did the Catholic Church denominate from? Never got an answer. Still waiting for one, though. So in 1830, Alexander Campbell and his followers separated from another church they founded, the Disciples of Christ. In 1832, they united with the many followers of Barton Stone and later became known as the Disciples of Christ. I guess there was another group called the Disciples. You see what I'm saying? This thing goes on in circles. I'm getting confused looking at it. It's just unbelievable. I guess things kind of firmed up in 1906. That's only 100 years. That's just over 100 years ago. You want to belong to a church that's 100 years old? Are you sure? You know what you're talking? Do you have any conception of reality? I'm going to go back to the parents' issue. Do you feel comfortable looking at your mother and father and saying to them, you know what, it's possible that my children will never see you again? Oh, that's harsh. But hey, you know what? It's reality. Because that's what she or he is going to tell you to do. What are you going to do then? Tell me what you're going to do. What are you going to do about that? you're going to have very little to do, very little power. The mother has probably the most power there is over her children. She bore them, in America anyway. I mean, come on. You know, how many mothers do you know don't have their own children? Very few. You know, if they have a problem or whatever, some issues. But most mothers keep their children, and guess where? They raise them in the very faith that you put them in. How are you going to feel when you're 40, 45, 50? Knowing that your kids are being raised in a cult. How are you going to feel about that? Are you going to think of yourself as stupid? Well, you should then. How about putting the brakes on it now? And you parents out there who know your children are joining these faiths, these churches, just saying no, it's not important. Well, that's what's going to happen, because you're not going to see your grandchildren again. So yeah, I think it's important. So what have we talked about so far? We're to 40 minutes plus maybe. I think I probably have said as much as I could possibly say. I'm not going to go and beat a dead horse. I've given you all the proof there is. I dug it all out of the internet. It took me 4 or 5 days. Make sure I have everything clear. I defy any Churches of Christ members to call me, to PM me, that what I said today or yesterday is wrong. I defy them. And I'm going to quote this from the encyclopedic historical sources. As far as faith goes, I'll quote them their own website. And as far as the whole thing about them being like the apostles and that their inspiration is the same, I'll quote them some quotes of Mr. Campbell. I keep forgetting the first name. I'm not very good at first names. And they'll probably tell you, oh, well, you know what? I mean, maybe he said something similar, but not that important. Excuse me. Well, yeah, it is very important. Because nothing the Catholic Church teaches is nothing but important. You can go to the very first century to today. Everything the Catholic Church teaches, it maintains as the same truth today. There's no iffy biffy one, you know, it is or it isn't, or it could be or it might be or it won't be. I can clearly point it out in here. Get it, study it, learn it. Very, very good. And you know what? What's interesting in this book? It's really interesting. I'm going to bring this up. Doesn't mention anything bad about anyone. Whether it's Baptists, Presbyterians, these are mainline denominations, they're Christian churches. Assemblies of God, not very happy about. They don't love us that much, but anyway. Lutherans today still believe the Pope is the Antichrist. In their Book of Concord, it is written the Pope is the Antichrist. They didn't pull that out. And now, you know, I heard them say something about, well, you know, those old bulls of the popes, you know, those old encyclicals state that Martin Luther is a heretic and an antichrist. Well, you know what? Those things are not something we have and enjoin to this day. We don't read it every single time, every chance we get. I don't even know half of the bulls or half of the epistles that were written, between, I don't know, the 5th century, 6th, and today. Those things are there, but so what? Okay, I'll admit that they're there, but anyone who calls you names, anyone that calls the Pope an Antichrist, let's keep Lutherans aside. They recognize. I'm going to go with the faith. They recognize that the faith is. We have a lot in common. Okay, I guess I'll have to forgive them for that little item that they can't seem to get off their chests. That Book of Concord, anyway, needs to be wiped out. That one liner, but I'm not going to get into that too much. But when you're talking about a church that controls you like this one and tells you what to do, how you're going to rear your children, and that your children can't visit your parents on Christmas, Easter, I don't know when other place. I mean, I'm sure there's other religious holidays we have. Do you think that's really all that it is? Why don't you ask her? Ask him. Do you think our children are not going to be able to see my parents because they're Catholic? What's going to be her answer or his answer? Oh, come on. I mean, that's hogwash. They can't give you an answer. They're not stupid. But that's exactly what's going to happen. Your family is antithetical to what they believe. Okay? That's like if you had a friend and he worshiped the devil. Do you honestly think that any church would allow you to associate yourself with him, let alone your children, let alone you? Well, that is what the churches of Christ see in the Catholic Church. They basically view the Catholic Church as the son of the devil. Demonic, diabolical. Hey, the Pharisees called Jesus that. Isn't he Beelzebub? See all those connections? I'm trying to help you. I'm trying to make those clear for you. It's the truth. All you have to do is open the Bible or open a catechism. This isn't the Book of Mormon, by the way, which is equal to the Bible. The catechism is something Lutherans have, Presbyterians have, Baptists have manuals on what they believe. You can call it, whatever you want to call it. It's basically an instructional manual. That's all it is. It's not equivalent to the Bible. Never was, never will be. Bible has its own authority. Okay? It's at a total different level. But what you need to, and I'm going to wind this up because I don't want to talk about it over and over. But basically, folks, let's put it this way. If you meddle with the devil will meddle with you. So it's very, very unfortunate that I even had to produce these 2 videos. But I did them because I felt a desire to help you. You know who you are. I was in my 30s once. And I did some very, very stupid things, honestly. But I wised up pretty quickly. What you don't want to do is cause yourself pain down the road, because that pain will grow, brother, will grow, grow, and grow. And it will not just make your parents, your family, your sister, your brothers, hurtful and sick to their stomachs. It's going to make you sick too. 3 years ago, I had open heart surgery. I know what it's like to be under stress. So what I would encourage you to do is reflect. Talk to your sister or brother, your mother, your father. Talk to fellow Catholics. Be patient about spouses and getting to know girls and this and that. I know how important that is. Believe me, nobody knows it better than me 21 years later, okay? But the fact of the matter is, it remains a fact. You do not want to make a mistake that will cause anguish, not blessings. So really, there's nothing else I can say anymore. Only appeal to your better instincts and to tell you that I'm available. If you want to get a hold of me, your sister knows exactly how that can happen, or your brother, or whoever you are. You can talk to me. Don't be embarrassed. Have your girlfriend, have your boyfriend, I don't care who, call me, PM me. No problem. I'm an equal opportunity helper, fixer. I'm not John Wick, but but you could call it what it is. There's nothing to be afraid of. Look, we all make mistakes, but this is it. I'm not going to make any more videos about the churches of Christ, but I will tell you, they are a social cult. Anyone that controls you to the extent that you have been controlled is a social cult. Koresh. I mean, there's what, a very recent cult, the splinter group from the Mormons. They wanted to marry all these women and all this stuff. I mean, this one guy, I mean, who knows what would have happened with that if the police didn't get a hold of that situation under the control. That happened a few years back. I'm not familiar with the details. There are many cults today. But I'm concerned about this one the most, because this one has the right to really, really screw your life up, buddy. I'm telling you like it is. So with that, I mean, I'll let you go. You know my name. It's right there, Robert J. Sleds. I'm not hiding. I don't hide. So if I'm wrong, and if, your girlfriend, your boyfriend, whoever it is, tells you all these bad things about things, you know what they're doing? They're giving you empty rhetoric. They're avoiding these issues, all these issues that I gave you. They're avoiding all that. They're not going to give you a direct answer. They're going to pivot. You know what pivot means? That means basically when you're saying something and you're directing a reply or an answer or a question, they sway it to something different. They pivot. Don't allow them to pivot. Don't allow empty rhetoric. Expect an answer for the question that you give. You don't get it, goodbye. All right? I know I'm raising my voice a little bit. And I said I would be a little harsh. I'm harsh with myself. most of the time. But I encourage you, listen to your family, because it is them that are right. They that are right. Don't separate yourself from them. Don't do anything that would separate yourself from them and them from you. They're always going to love you. Your sister loves you. Your brothers love you, I'm sure. Don't do anything stupid, okay? I've given you guys everything. I've taken the time because this is very important. So now it's up to you. I'm handing you the keys. I'm giving you the choice. You got the choices. You always had. Don't make the wrong one. And when they ask, and when they tell you the Bible says, tell them by whose authority. Where did the Bible come from? You'll find all that in part 1. I'm not going to go over that again. Council of Carthage. I'm not going to go through that again. You can look at part 1. So thank you for listening, for watching. And I really hope that you have gotten something healthy and good out of this. Some of this was kind of overlapping from the previous video, but sometimes you have to overlap. Sometimes you have to underline things that are important. Don't allow anyone to control you, tell you what to do. The Pope doesn't tell me what to do. Don't allow a little twerp to tell you what to do. That's right, a little twerp. No human being is supposed to tell someone what to do. Even in a marriage, by the way, it's a co-equal existence. Co-equal. You and your spouse are co-equal. I bet you she doesn't believe that. And I'll tell you what, as I said before, it's not going to be a very good picture when you get married. I'll tell you that straight out. It ain't gonna end well. It's not. Never does. So thank you, and I really do wish you well, but like I said, my door is always open. In fact, I'll even give you my phone number if you ask for it. All you have to do is PM me. If I gave it now, I would have hundreds of people calling me. Realistically, that's what would happen. PM me, any one of you, if you have any questions. And if I can get to them, I hope there's not 1,000, but PM me. Don't be afraid. I'll answer as many questions as I can. But the question that you need to remember to give to your girlfriend, where did the Bible come from? Where did the books come from? The table of contents shows 66 books on their in the churches of Christ, 73 books in the Catholic Church. Why? Ask them. And whatever they tell you, go to your sources. I'm going to list the Council of Carthage. Actually, the Council of Carthage, I'm going to list from the Bible Researchers, which is a Protestant organization. I'm going to list to you what they provided historically, how the 73 books of the Bible were codified in 397 AD, not 1809 or 1906 or 54 or whatever. Excuse me. So that's really it. We're just over an hour and 20 seconds. Where did the Bible come from? The basic essence of truth. Ask him. Ask her. Don't be shy. She's your girlfriend, isn't she? Talk to you later.